Boston, June the 13th, kickoff at 9 at night, supposedly the safe slot. Scotland beat Haiti 1-0, and their winger Ben Gannon-Doak gets pulled in the 75th minute. Someone asks if that stung. He says no, he wasn't annoyed. He needed it. His exact words, his calf muscles had decided to leave the stadium before he did. Funny line. Also, quietly, a data point. You've been watching this tournament as 48 teams chasing a trophy. It's actually 49. The 49th doesn't wear a kit, doesn't get named in any squad list, and it's already through to the knockout rounds along with everyone else, because it plays every match, on both sides, whether the commentators mention it or not. There are two honest ways to watch this World Cup right now. 1. Football gets decided by talent, shape, and who wants it more when it matters. The other, this particular summer, talent is only doing half the job because something with no left foot and no manager is also deciding results. Neither camp is wrong. Watching them argue is the interesting part. Case for the thermometer first. A study out of the 2014 tournament in Brazil found something specific. Past roughly 28 degrees Celsius, players cover noticeably less ground and fewer high-intensity sprints. Here's the part that should make you distrust easy stories, though. The same research found passing accuracy actually went up in the heat, not down. Bodies slow, decision-making doesn't necessarily follow. Heat isn't a simple villain that breaks everything at once. It breaks specific things and leaves others standing, which is exactly why it's easy to underestimate until it isn't. What it does reliably do is drag matches toward extra time and penalties, because two exhausted teams find it much harder to break each other down than two fresh ones. The clean way to talk about hot is a number you'll keep hearing all tournament: wet bulb globe temperature, WBGT. Not the reading on your phone. It folds in humidity, direct sun, even wind, because a dry 30 degrees and a humid, windless 30 degrees on open concrete are two different physical events for a sprinting human body. Think of it less like a thermometer and more like a lie detector for how a stadium actually feels versus what the forecast claims. Scientists monitoring this tournament found that 14 of the 16 host stadiums crossed the dangerous 28-degree WBGT line on more than half of hot year afternoons. That's not a freak occurrence. That's the baseline. Objection, and it's a fair one. Heat is real, sure, but is it an opponent if it's the same sun over both penalty boxes? Except it isn't the same exposure. That's the twist inside the twist. A Bloomberg analysis of every team's travel and kickoff schedule found Tunisia facing the tournament's single highest heat burden. Second on that list, France, the runners-up from 4 years ago. Compare that to a side that trains, lives, and plays in real heat year-round. For them, this is an ordinary Tuesday. Acclimatization takes months. A European squad simply doesn't get in the space between a domestic season ending and a World Cup starting. It's not for lack of trying either. Norway's players had a training session outside Florida cut short by their own coaching staff before a heat-soaked warm-up match. Players sprawled on the grass hunting for shade, days before a ball was even kicked competitively. Then there's Mexico City. Estadio Azteca logged roughly 2 genuinely extreme heat days a year back in 1986. This tournament, that number is up near 11. All 3 Mexican grounds sit open to the sky. Stack on the altitude, over 2,000 meters, air that carries measurably less oxygen per breath. And you've built a stadium that punishes precisely the aerobic fitness European teams usually treat as their edge. So, not neutral weather. A filter. And it isn't filtering evenly, which leads somewhere less comfortable. If organizers understood all of this in advance, and they clearly did, why do so many marquee matches still land in the worst hours of the afternoon? Here's where the second argument starts, and it's less about physics, more about motive. FIFA did respond. A mandatory 3-minute break roughly 22 minutes into each half in every single match, no matter the weather, the roof, or the round. That's real, and it isn't nothing. There's also a second threshold, 32 degrees WBGT, above which FIFA can delay or postpone a match outright. Worth sitting with, that's a decision FIFA has never once actually made. Not this tournament, not any tournament. Meanwhile, the kickoff clock does something interesting. A slot at 3 in the afternoon Eastern isn't chosen for the players standing on grass in Texas. It's chosen because 3 in Texas lands at prime time in London and Paris. This isn't a new trick either. Back in 2018, years before any of this was confirmed, Diego Maradona went on Argentine television and predicted football would eventually get carved into 4 halves instead of 2 purely to fit in adverts. That clip is resurfacing right now, this week, because of the hydration breaks, and it isn't a perfect match for what actually happened, but it's close enough that a dead man's joke is aging uncomfortably well. To be fair to FIFA, because a pile of facts isn't automatically proof of intent, nobody's produced a memo saying ratings before recovery. What exists is the schedule, the roof count, the break rule, and a postponement threshold FIFA has kept but never used. What you make of that pattern is genuinely up to you. Personal question, and I actually want an answer. Does a heat-driven kickoff schedule bother you as a fairness issue, or does it just feel like the modern game being honest about who pays for it? And which team do you think this particular summer is punishing hardest? I've got a guess, but tell me yours. If this is the kind of angle that makes you watch a match differently, that's the whole point of this channel, so stick around. Now the pushback, because letting the thermometer win by default would be dishonest. Harry Kane, asked about conditions just days before his own tournament opener, waved the concern off. After enough training in the heat, he said, "It won't be a factor." He isn't alone in that view, and history backs him up more than you'd expect. The hottest men's World Cup final in 75 years was played in this same country back in 1994, in temperatures past 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the tournament still crowned a champion decided by football, not by the weather. During that same 1994 tournament, Ireland's manager Jack Charlton was reprimanded by officials for throwing water bottles onto the pitch to his own dehydrated players. Nobody remembers that final as a heat story. They remember who won, so who takes the clash? Neither, cleanly, and that's the honest answer. Heat isn't destiny. It's a tilt on the table, not a rigged one. It won't decide who lifts the trophy on the 19th of July, but it decides who's still sprinting in the 81st minute and who's already jogging backward hoping the ball doesn't find them, and across a month-long tournament, that difference compounds. 4 stadiums here can seal themselves shut and run the air conditioning: Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Vancouver. Los Angeles has a roof that keeps the sun off but not the heat in. Which venue you're drawn into is, quietly, as much a competitive variable as your left back's recovery pace. So here's the flip, and it's been sitting in plain sight since the opening whistle of this whole tournament. Every table, every bracket, every pundit's prediction treats this as a contest between national teams. But there's a 49th competitor nobody scouted and nobody can substitute off, and it's already gone the full distance in every match played so far. It doesn't respect a famous badge, and it definitely doesn't care about your fantasy lineup. Next time a European side looks a yard slower with 20 minutes left before you blame the manager, check what the thermometer said at kickoff. Sometimes the better team doesn't lose. Its calves just clock out first.